Welcome everyone to this exciting deep dive into the world of rare and valuable coins, where today we are going to explore in incredible detail the fascinating story of the 1972 D1 cent USA coin, a humble penny that under certain extraordinary circumstances can be worth an unbelievable $400,000. And the reason behind this sky-high valuation lies in the errors, mistakes, and rare minting possibilities that make such coins so precious to collectors and investors all over the world. So sit back and allow yourself to be immersed in the layers of history, numismatic details, minting anomalies, and the fascinating journey that turns a simple copper coin into a treasure of immense value. Because the story of the 1972 D penny is not just about a piece of metal but about human craftsmanship, errors that slip through the cracks, the excitement of discovery, and the thrill of owning something that few others on the planet can claim to have. And to understand why this particular coin can fetch $400,000, we must first remember that in 1972 the United States Mint was producing billions of pennies, most of them in copper before the major composition change of the early 1980s, and these coins were churned out in Denver, Philadelphia, and San Francisco mints, with the D Mint mark indicating Denver production. And while the vast majority of these coins remain common, worth only a cent in everyday life, a tiny fraction emerged with dramatic minting errors, striking flaws, or doubled features that transformed them from pocket change into high-value collectibles, because coin errors are not mere mistakes but unique artifacts that capture an unrepeatable moment in minting history. And the 1972 D penny is a perfect illustration of how a blend of rarity, condition, demand, and mint anomalies creates immense value. Now, one of the most famous categories of error coins that makes the 1972 D penny so desirable is the double die error, where during the hubbing process the die itself receives a misaligned or shifted impression of the design, meaning that every coin struck from that die carries the doubling, and in some cases this doubling is very dramatic, clearly visible in the inscriptions such as Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, or the date itself. So collectors are always on the hunt for 1972 D double die obverse. Because while the Philadelphia Mint has the most famous 1972 double die examples, Denver Mint errors are scarcer and thus command astronomical prices when they appear. And imagine finding a 1972 D penny in your change where the date shows clear doubling, the letters of Liberty have shadows, or the motto above Lincoln's head looks like it has been struck twice. Such a coin immediately leaps from being worth 1 cent to being a treasure that auction houses would battle to secure, and the rarity is compounded because not all errors are identical. Some may feature subtle mechanical doubling which is not as valuable, while others are true hub doubling with crisp, separated impressions, and only the latter can push values into hundreds of thousands of dollars. And beyond doubling there are off-center strikes, where the coin was not seated properly in the collar during striking, causing Lincoln's portrait to be partially missing or shifted to one side, with a blank crescent of planchet visible, and depending on how much of the design remains visible. Such off-center errors can be worth thousands of dollars, but when paired with a mint mark like D, and in high grade, collectors are willing to push values far higher. And then we have die cracks, die clashes, and cuds, which are imperfections caused by wear or damage to the dies themselves, leaving raised lines, extra bumps, or missing chunks of design on the coin, and far from making them worthless, these imperfections turn ordinary coins into unique, one-of-a-kind collectibles that no other person can replicate. Which is why collectors are willing to pay astronomical sums, and when you combine these errors with superb condition, say a coin that has been preserved in uncirculated mint state, graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC, the values soar even higher, because condition and rarity together form the magic combination. And one reason why a 1972 D penny could realistically reach the $400,000 level is when multiple factors converge. For example, a dramatic double die obverse in pristine mint state red condition, with clear details and strong strike, verified by top graders, sold in a competitive auction environment where wealthy collectors bid against each other for ownership of a coin they may never have another chance to acquire. And this is not hypothetical, because history shows us time and again that collectors are willing to pay record-breaking sums for coins that combine rarity, error, and condition. And the Lincoln Cent series in particular holds a special place in American numismatics, because millions of people grew up with these coins in their pockets, making them both nostalgic and collectible. So when a rare variant like the 1972 D era surfaces, the demand is explosive, and beyond doubling and striking anomalies there are transitional errors that add further intrigue, such as coins struck on the wrong planchet. For example, a 1972 D penny accidentally struck on a dime planchet or on a leftover planchet from another denomination, creating a coin that is undersized or has incorrect metal composition, and such pieces are so rare that they ignite bidding wars. And in fact, planchet errors are among the most exciting finds because they are truly mint mistakes that were not meant to leave the facility, and when they do, they become legends. And for the 1972 D penny, another possible anomaly is repunched mint marks, where the D mint mark itself shows doubling or overlapping impressions because in that era mint marks were punched by hand. And this human factor introduced countless possibilities for varieties, some of which are now among the most prized finds for collectors. And imagine spotting a 1972 D penny with a repunched mint mark plus a double die feature. The rarity of such a combination is nearly incalculable, making such a coin potentially worth hundreds of thousands. And another factor that must be considered is that era coins from the Denver Mint of the early 1970s are generally less documented than their Philadelphia counterparts, meaning new discoveries are still possible. So every time someone checks their pocket change, coin roll, or inherited jar of pennies from that era, there is a chance, however slim, that a treasure is waiting to be uncovered, and that sense of mystery fuels the excitement and keeps collectors endlessly searching. And it's not just about financial gain, it's also about the thrill of being the one to discover, authenticate, and preserve a piece of numismatic history. But the financial aspect is undeniably attractive, because when a coin that costs the government less than a cent to mint can end up commanding $400,000 at auction, the return on investment is astronomical, and stories of such finds inspire more people to look into their collections, ensuring that demand remains strong and values remain high. And it's not only individual errors but also proof-like qualities or unusual striking characteristics that can add value. Because some 1972 D pennies may show unusually sharp detail, mirrored surfaces, or other features that make them stand out, and grading companies recognize these qualities with designations like PL, proof-like, or MS Plus grades, further enhancing their desirability. And let's not forget about the role of auctions and publicity, because when a major auction house highlights a rare 1972 D penny error, numismatic media outlets spread the story, collectors around the world take notice, and demand spikes, leading to record prices. And such cycles repeat, reinforcing the perception of these coins as both collectibles and investments. And speaking of investments, one reason rare coins like the 1972 D penny can reach such high prices is because wealthy collectors see them as alternative assets, tangible pieces of history that hold value in uncertain economic times. Unlike paper investments that can fluctuate wildly, coins are real, scarce, and culturally significant, making them a stable and prestigious way to store wealth. And for the general public, the story of a penny being worth $400,000 captures the imagination because it overturns the ordinary, turning something as common as pocket change into a potential fortune. And this contrast between the mundane and the extraordinary is what makes such stories viral, engaging millions of people who may never have thought about coin collecting before. And now, when we zoom back to the details of the 1972 D penny, it's worth remembering that not every era coin is valuable. Many minor anomalies exist but are not worth more than a few dollars, and the real prize lies in those rare, dramatic, and verifiable errors that meet the strict criteria of grading and authentication. And collectors always emphasize the importance of certification, because without professional authentication, the risk of counterfeits or misunderstandings is too high. And in the high-stakes world of $400,000 coins, authenticity is everything. Next, 1973 D 1 cent USA coin, another incredible journey into the fascinating world of numismatics, the study and collection of coins, where history, rarity, and human error combine to turn small copper pieces of everyday currency into treasures worth life-changing amounts of money. And today we are going to dive deeply into the extraordinary story of the 1973 D1 cent USA coin, a humble Lincoln cent minted in Denver that under the right conditions and with the right errors or mistakes can be worth a staggering $400,000. And what makes this coin so captivating is not just its age, its historical context, or its connection to the broader Lincoln penny series, but the remarkable set of possibilities that exist in how it was struck, preserved, and discovered, which elevate it far above ordinary pocket change. So sit back and prepare to immerse yourself in a long and detailed exploration of everything that makes the 1973 D penny so incredibly valuable in rare cases, because the world of coins is one where the tiniest deviations can create monumental differences in value, and the story of this coin is one that reflects not just the mechanical process of minting but also human craftsmanship, accidental oversight, and the insatiable demand of collectors who chase rarity and perfection with unwavering passion. Now, the Lincoln cent had already been in circulation since 1909 when it was first introduced to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and by 1973 it was a firmly established part of American currency, instantly recognizable and beloved by generations, minted in huge numbers at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, with the D mint mark signifying Denver production, and billions of pennies poured out of the Denver mint in 1973, the vast majority destined to remain as ordinary copper coins circulating for decades. But among those billions, a few slipped through with dramatic errors and unusual mistakes that transformed them into highly coveted rarities, so much so that under the right combination of error, rarity, and pristine condition, a single 1973 D penny could command $400,000 at auction, and this astronomical valuation is not an exaggeration but a reflection of how numismatics works, where demand, scarcity, historical significance, and collector frenzy drive prices to astonishing heights. So let us begin by examining the most prominent category of errors that could make the 1973 D penny so valuable, the doubled die error, which occurs when the die used to strike the coin is improperly hubbed, receiving two misaligned impressions that result in doubling of the design elements on every coin struck by that die, and collectors prize these doubled die coins because the doubling is part of the original design, not post-mint damage, making them authentic and highly collectible. And while the 1972 doubled die obverse is among the most famous in the Lincoln cent series, the 1973 D doubled dies are far scarcer. Which is precisely why they are so valuable, and if you were to find a 1973 D penny where the date shows clear doubling, or the inscriptions like Liberty and I in God We Trust appear doubled with sharp, distinct separations, you could be holding a coin worth hundreds of thousands, especially if preserved in mint state red condition, because collectors know how rare these are, and in fact, Denver mint doubled dies are often harder to locate and identify because the mint was more efficient at catching errors, making surviving examples even more coveted. And aside from doubled dies, another class of valuable errors includes off-center strikes, where the coin blank was not properly aligned in the press and the design was struck partially off the flan, leaving a blank crescent and shifting Lincoln's portrait to the side, and while minor off-center strikes might only be worth a few dollars, dramatic off-centers with 50% of the design missing yet still showing the date and mint mark can command thousands, but when combined with rarity, desirability, and high grade, certain off-center 1973 D pennies have the potential to reach astronomical levels of value, because they are both visually stunning and historically fascinating. And then we come to planchet errors, where the coin is struck on the wrong type of blank, a leftover planchet from another denomination or even a foreign coin. And these wrong planchet strikes are among the most dramatic errors, because they create coins that are the wrong weight, the wrong size, or even the wrong color, and for the 1973 D penny, known examples exist of coins struck on dime planchets or other denominations, and such pieces are immensely valuable, because they represent an undeniable minting blunder that somehow escaped quality control, and collectors absolutely love these mistakes because they are truly one of a kind. No two being exactly alike, and it is not just wrong planchets, but also clipped planchets, where a portion of the blank was missing when struck, creating coins with curved or straight clips that reveal the blanking process gone wrong. And while minor clips may only bring modest premiums, dramatic full clips, especially if they intersect with key design features, can make the coin highly desirable. And then we have die breaks, cuds, and die cracks, which occur as the dies themselves age and deteriorate, creating raised lines or blobs of extra metal on the coin. And although many die cracks are minor, some 1973 pennies display dramatic die breaks or large cuts that significantly change the appearance of the coin, and these unique varieties appeal strongly to era collectors, further boosting their value. And if such a coin is preserved in uncirculated condition, with its copper luster intact, it can become worth far more than one would imagine. And we cannot forget repunched mint marks, which are varieties created when the D-mint mark, applied manually in that era, was punched more than once in slightly different positions, creating a doubled or tripled mint mark effect. And collectors love these RPM varieties because they represent the human element of coin making, with mint employees hand-punching the marks. And 1973 RPMs are both documented and sought after, with rare examples fetching high prices in auctions. And when you imagine combining an RPM with another dramatic era like a doubled die, you can understand why certain coins become legendary, worth hundreds of thousands, because they represent a perfect storm of rarity and desirability. And beyond the eras themselves, condition plays a crucial role, because most pennies from 1973 circulated heavily, picking up scratches, wear, and discoloration, but uncirculated mint state coins, especially those designated as MS65 or higher by grading services like PCGS or NGC, are exponentially more valuable. And when you add the rarest era to such a coin, the result is an astronomical price tag. And this is how a 1973 penny could realistically achieve $400,000, because the market for top quality, certified, rare era coins is extremely competitive, and wealthy collectors are willing to pay whatever it takes to secure a piece that few others in the world can own. And it's important to understand the psychology of collectors here, because the Lincoln Cent series has been a cornerstone of American numismatics for more than a century, with millions of enthusiasts collecting them by date, mint mark, and variety. And within such a popular series, the rarest and most dramatic eras become legendary, attracting not just collectors but also investors who see them as alternative assets, tangible pieces of American history that can hold and even increase in value over time. And the appeal is universal, because everyone knows the penny, making it relatable. And when the public hears that a penny could be worth $400,000, it captures imagination in a way that few other collectibles can, creating buzz and demand. And that demand feeds into auction results, which in turn drive prices even higher. And for the 1973 penny, another layer of fascination comes from its context in history, because 1973 was a time of change in America, with inflation rising, the Vietnam War ongoing, and the coinage system gradually preparing for shifts in composition that would culminate in the 1982 transition from copper to zinc cents. So pennies from this era represent the last generation of full copper Lincoln cents, and that historical factor further enhances their appeal, because they are not only errors but also part of a bygone monetary system, and collectors often attach historical nostalgia to their pursuit, which fuels their willingness to pay extraordinary amounts. And then there is the role of discovery, because while many famous eras have been documented, new discoveries are still possible. And a previously unknown double die or planchet error from 1973 could surface tomorrow, instantly catapulting the coin and its finder into numismatic fame. And that possibility keeps collectors searching coin rolls, examining change, and attending coin shows, all with the hope of being the one to uncover the next six-figure penny. And it's this sense of treasure hunting, of discovering hidden wealth in plain sight, that makes the hobby so addictive and rewarding. And when you hear stories of ordinary people finding life-changing coins in their collections or in circulation, it reinforces the dream that anyone could strike it lucky.